Yo guys, what is going on? Blossom is back, and today I'm back with a brand new series. I know, I've been going off of these new series and new ideas recently, and I'm absolutely loving it. This series, as you can tell from the title, is called RQ Alphabet, which basically means I will cover one car from each RQ going from 3 to 30. So just about 27 cars if my math is correct. But if you guys have stuck around the channel, you know that my math is just absolutely horrendous. So today's episode is going to be my favorite car from each RQ. And then we can do other things as well, kind of like maybe my least favorite car for each RQ. That one's gonna be like all French. And maybe like the most important car for each RQ, you know, stuff like that. Let me know down in the comments below what kind of judging category you want me to do for each car per RQ. But starting off, I'm going to do my favorite car for each RQ. This basically I need to stop eating granola, I swear. Like, without milk, it just gets stuck in my throat. Let me get some water. But yeah, so let me know what your suggestions are, but this is going to be my favorite car for each RQ. So starting off in RQ number 3, we have the Pontiac Firebird Trans Am, 8.90 to 60, 84. Now, if you see a picture like this, or the next one I'm going to show you right here, and you can see, you know, the upgrade patterns, and usually the cars are max, that's because it's my very own. If you don't see a picture like this, and it's just a picture of the car, it means I don't own it yet. But I'm doing it this way so you can see my upgrade pattern as well. So like this one is 969. So in RQ4, my favorite car is indeed the Dodge Monaco. 8.6, 0 to 60, 130 top speed, which is high for an RQ4, but really bad handling at 61, but it does have standard tires. Now, why I love this car so much is because it reminds me of Tex from Cars. If you don't know who he is, I will put a picture now, or maybe even before I said now, somewhere in the screen. So moving on to number 5 is indeed the BMW 507. As you can see, I've done like a Frankenstein upgrade on this at what, 888. Some of you might be cringing at this, but I just really wanted to try and see how useful this upgrade pattern could be. I'm very wrong though, it loses to absolutely everything, I think. Honestly, I've stopped paying attention. It's also common level, so I don't really care that much. But yeah, no, nothing I would say groundbreaking with this upgrade, so don't try an 888. Moving on to RQ6, my favorite car is indeed the BMW 2800 CS. I love the kidney grills on this, it's really classic. I love kind of like those raccoon eyes, and I just love the design of this car. This is also my own at 969, medium ground clearance. It has decent 0 to 60, especially thinking it's an RQ6 and is also a 60s car. It's not that bad. Medium ground clearance, performance tires, and that's all I have to say for it, really. But moving on to RQ7 is indeed the Chevrolet Tahoe. This was one of my dream cars growing up, strangely enough to admit. Honestly, I wouldn't mind having one either. I think Eminem had one of these, right, before he moved on to the Escalades. Surprisingly enough, I don't have any Escalades in this list. I do love Escalades, though. But moving on to number 8 is, of course, the car from Smokey and the Bandit, the Pontiac Trans Am. I love this car to death, and this is my very own at, it's at 996, but for some reason I highlighted the weight instead of the chassis. Yeah, I don't know why I did that. Maybe I just thought it was 969, but it's 996, 6.20 to 60, 138 top speed, and non-existing handling, but that is the muscle car we know and love. So moving on to RQ9 is indeed my favorite Mustang in the game right now, the Ford Mustang 289. Obviously in top drives, we don't have a good selection of Mustangs. We have like five different Mustangs or so. The Mustang Boss is cool, but it's not the Laguna Seca version for all I know of, the Boss 305, so I don't know. I do love the Laguna Seca version though. But my favorite Mustang in the game is indeed the Ford Mustang 289. Hopefully Ford will get an overhaul one day, and Hutch will finally do some research on muscle cars and actually add the GT500 or the GT350. Those would be amazing. Anyway, moving on to number 10 is the Maserati Indy. I know, huge shocker. I bet you guys are probably thinking I would choose the Chevrolet Impala 427 or the Plymouth GTX. I love both cars, don't get me wrong, but my favorite one here is the Maserati Indy. It's my favorite Maserati of all time. And I love the picture they chose. Red is my favorite color. It's a red car, red background. I love the retro vibe. It's a perfect card. And because of that, I have 3 of them maxed out. The one I'm showing you here is 996, but I have 2 others that are at 969. I wouldn't say it's a great car. Low 0 to 60, high top speed, but it doesn't have amazing MRA. It's decent. It's not a great car. It's not a game changer. If you don't like it, you don't need to have it. But moving on is RQ11. And my favorite car for RQ11 is the Dodge Coronet Super B. Oh, I love this. 4.60 to 60 for an RQ11 car. Almost a top speed of 150. This is great. I think it's medium ground clearance too. So it's a great car, and it shares the same body as one of my favorite cars. Well, it shares the same body as my favorite car in the whole world, the 1969 Dodge Charger. I think it's called the F body. I'm not sure though. It's been a while since I did research on the car. But moving on to RQ12 is the Pontiac Trans Am 20th anniversary. I know, 2 Trans Ams in one video. There are a couple Pontiacs in the lower rarities. Why I love the Trans Am so much is because my favorite car show growing up was actually not Smokey and the Bandit. It was Knight Rider with David Hasselhoff. He was a role model of mine. That's why I like leather jackets and stuff like that. I never watched Baywatch though, and I think that's for the better, especially with the whole Pamela Anderson thing going on. We don't want to talk about that. Okay, so Pontiac Trans Am 20th anniversary. I love this car. I love the color. I had a poster in my room of a Pontiac Trans Am. Actually, I had 2. One was, in this exact spec with those exact bronze wheels, rims, and the same color of white. And my other Trans Am was, of course, Kit from Knight Rider. So I love this car a lot. Moving on to RQ13, once again with another Pontiac. It's the Firebird Trans Am. Now this was a close one because I was thinking about the Chevrolet Corvette 396, but in the end, I really just love Firebirds. I love Firebirds, I love Trans Ams, I love old Pontiacs. The new ones are bad, but I love the old ones. And it's kind of ironic to see that a lot of the newer model Pontiacs, I would say like in the 2000s in this game, or the early 90s, are actually uncommon. And the ones that came like a decade before, well, as you can see, is rare. So the older cards were actually better than the newer ones, but I'm not comparing it to like the Trans Am 35th anniversary or the Solstice or anything like that. Anyway, moving on to number 14, or RQ14, is indeed the Nissan Skyline Hardtop 2000 GTR. There was actually a Plymouth Roadrunner, which honestly, honorable mention to the Plymouth Roadrunner. I love that car to death. And honestly, if I saw a 2000 GTR and a Roadrunner side to side next to each other, I'll probably spend a longer time with the Roadrunner. But the first car that would honestly attract me would be the 2000 GTR. This is my second favorite Skyline of all time. My favorite is the R32, which actually isn't even my favorite RQ21 car, so shocker. But I do love this car. I remember, a lot of people, they collect Hot Wheels, especially when they grow up, to play around and Hot Wheels and all that kind of stuff. I collected Hot Wheels too, but my favorite die-cast manufacturer was Japanese. It was called Tomica, if you know what that is. And the Tomica Skyline Hardtop 2000 GTR was my favorite Tomica as a kid growing up. It was either that or some Lexus. But yeah, I really love this car to death. And you can tell because I maxed this out when it used to be a super rare. And you know how much I hate maxing out super rare. So, if I'm maxing out a super rare, it means something to me. But obviously you gotta downgrade, but I'm still keeping it in my garage. Anyway, moving on to RQ15 is the Plymouth Hemi Cuda. This car needs no introduction. It's an absolutely amazing car. I have it at 969, and I love it to death. Moving on to 16 is the Chevrolet Camaro IROC Z28. And this was this was Will Smith's first car, I think, this one, and it's a really good first car to have. I wish this was my first car over the BMW that I have. Oh my god, that just sounds so entitled. I don't mean that, I promise. I just love muscle cars. But my mom doesn't want to get me a muscle car because I'm 19 and the insurance is really bad, or really high. This is my own 969. It's a beautiful car. Moving on to 17 is one of my favorite cars of all time, not only just in the game of Top Drives, but just all time in general. It's the Plymouth Superbird. Now, we know, or at least you guys know, when I said earlier that I grew up watching Knight Rider and my favorite car was Kit and all that. Kit actually, well, Okay, to put it into two different categories, Kit is my favorite TV vehicle that was real. But my favorite vehicle that isn't real is the Plymouth Superbird from Cars, the movie, Pixar Cars, the King, Richard Petty, and I love the Superbird so much. So this is my favorite RQ-17 car, and it will be. You know, I don't care what updates come in the future. There's no car that's going to top the Plymouth Superbird. Anyway, moving on to RQ18, is actually not the Datsun. The Datsun is the first honorable mention I have on my list. Why I love the Datsun so much is literally because I grew up listening to Kanye West, and one of his songs, Gold Digger, he has like this line, this lyric where he says Datsun in the funniest way, and I just love saying it like how he says it. He's like Datsun, Datsun, in my Datsun. I love it. But because of that, I know what Datsun is. I love this car, but it's not my favorite because my favorite RQ18 car is indeed the Lamborghini LM002. I love this. It's such a fun car. It's such a beautiful car. This is like the Hellcat of SUVs from the 80s. I think it's so cool, so rad. This is my 969. A lot of people have been bashing me for it because they were like, yo, this car's only useful for hill climb, do 996. And you know what, you're probably right. So hopefully I'll get another one and then max that out 996, and I'll have the best of both worlds, I guess. But moving on to 19, I have the Dodge Challenger GT all-wheel drive. This is the car I plan to buy with my own money, or my first ever car that I buy by myself. So yeah, for that sole reason alone, it's my favorite. Moving on to RQ20 is the Honda NSX. I think the NSX is one of the coolest Japanese cars ever made. The one from the 90s, not the new NSX, which is quote-unquote American. I love the old NSX. I think it's beautiful. And I'm so happy that's going to be a prize car for the Volkswagen Challenger, something like that. Anyway, moving on to RQ21, we have a honorable mention, because this isn't my favorite, and the honorable mention goes to the Nissan Skyline GTR R32. Like I said, it's my favorite ever R32, but it's not my favorite RQ21 car in the game. Another honorable mention is the BMW M5. You guys know how much I love this car. It's a channel favorite. It's my favorite BMW in the game, and I mean, it's just a great car. I have this at 996. It's my first ever ultra rare too, and I've been through a lot with this. When I first got this, it was RQ21, and that was over 2.5 years ago. No, not 2.5 years ago, maybe like 2 years and a month ago. And then it went up to RQ22, but obviously it wasn't really good of its competitors, so now it's back to 21, and I think that's where it should be. It's a great car, but I know what you guys are thinking. What is better than the M5 and the R32 in my opinion? Well, my favorite RQ21 car is indeed the Chevrolet Corvette Grand Sport C4 from 1996. The C4 Grand Sport remains my favorite Grand Sport until today. They made Grand Sport versions of, you know, the C7, C6. Did they make one for the C6? I don't know. I don't know. That's my mom right there. I don't know if they made a C6 version of the Grand Sport. I'm sure they did for every version, but the C4 is indeed my favorite. And the C4 Silhouette is actually one of the coolest Corvettes ever. I love the C4, as much criticism as it takes. Moving on to RQ22 is indeed the Porsche 911 Turbo Martini as an honorable mention. You guys know I have like 7 or 8 of these. It's a lot. It's definitely a lot, and the only reason why I have like 4 of them maxed out is because I like the car. For that sole purpose alone, that's why it's an honorable mention. But my favorite RQ22 car in the game is indeed, it's I guess close relative, the Roof BTR. And it's funny, I didn't know much about the BTR before Top Drives. It was Top Drives that actually really got me into Roof, and I did a lot of research on the BTR. There's quite a bit of research to get into. And the BTR is just such a badass car. It's so cool. I have 3 of these all maxed out in different upgrade patterns. So this one I'm showing you is my personal favorite because it hits 200 miles per hour, 996. I also have a 969 and a 699. So I got all different upgrade patterns, which is great. Anyway, moving on to RQ23 is the first car that I don't have in my garage that is my favorite. It's funny, there are not a lot of RQ23 cars and Top Drives I actually like. The Mustang GT is decent. The Skyline R34 is worth a mention. But all in all, my favorite is the AMG S65. I love S-Classes. I've always had a weird, I guess, addiction for S classes. I always have this dream that one day when I'm successful, I don't want to roll around in a Rolls Royce or a Bentley Mulsanne, or I don't know what other cars people use. Yeah, I mean, Cadillac Escalade, I would love to be in one, but my choice would probably be the S Class or the Maybach. So yeah, the AMG S65. I think it's just such a cool car. Next one is an honorable mention. The Ford F-150 SVT Raptor. I love this car to death, but it's not my favorite RQ24. The BMW M2, also not my favorite, but it's also another honorable mention. I got this car literally yesterday. Yeah, I literally got this yesterday. It's a great car. It's one of my favorite BMWs of all time. But my favorite RQ24 car is indeed the 911 Carrera RSR 3.0. Really, like one of the only two motorsport cars I knew before Top Drives, because I never really followed motorsport growing up, and most of the motorsport cars I knew was from Top Drives. I didn't even know the Moby Dick 935 existed until Top Drives, but one car I didn't know exist was the Carrera RSR 3.0. I love this car. Main reason for that is the same reason from the Turbo Martini. I love the Turbo Martini, or the Martini livery, and that's how I knew about a lot of the Lancias before Top Drives as well. Moving on to RQ25, my favorite is the 996 Porsche 911 GT3 RS. The 996 911 is my favorite variation of a 911 that was been ever made, really. The Friday headlights, as I guess controversial as they may be, are my favorite. I think they're so cool, and I love how you can only get this car in two colors. I mean, only white, but you could either get the decal in red or blue, which is really cool. Moving on to RQ26. First honorable mention, I got a couple here, is the Chevrolet Corvette Stingray Z51 C7. I wrote a whole final paper on this for my designs class. You guys know that. Another honorable mention is, of course, the Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat and the Dodge Charger SRC Hellcat. But my favorite RQ26 is, well, you guys know this, is not the 911 GT2. I forgot I had this in the list. Once again, you know, it's in my list because it's a 996 Porsche. I love the Friday headlights, but my favorite RQ26 car in the game is indeed, yeah, Heartbreak. I'm so sad. I really want this, man. I really want this car. I'll max this out in a day. I'll max this out in 5 minutes. I'll spend gold to speed up the fuse times. Like, I really want this car, and the fact that like Hutch has just not given it to me, and when I mean give, I mean I got from a pack. But they've gave me like 6 of the green ones. It hurts. I really want the wide body. It's so beautiful, and I just think that the wide body versions of Hellcats just look 100 times nicer than the skinny versions. Even the wide body Charger. Honestly, that might be my new favorite RQ26 if it's in the game. Moving on to RQ27, no brainer. 959, my favorite Porsche ever, full stop. Moving on to 28, honorable mention. I know. ACR is not my favorite. Hollywood is an honorable mention. My first ever Legendary maxed out. I mean, the reason why I maxed this out over what my actual favorite RQ28 Legendary is because this car is, well, it combines like usefulness and likability. My favorite RQ28 car has very high likability, but it doesn't have as high of a usefulness level as the ACR. Another honorable mention is Bollywood, which is my Dodge SRT Viper, not the ACR version. And of course, my favorite RQ28 car is indeed, you guys saw this coming, the Dodge Challenger SRT Damon, one of my favorite cars of all time. Honestly, it's probably my second favorite car of all time. My favorite car of all time is, of course, the 1969 Dodge Charger, but I love this car to death. Moving on to RQ29, we got no honorable mentions here. My favorite is indeed the Porsche 911 GT2 RS. My very own, as you can see, I have it at 336, and the Demon, I had it at 363, if you guys saw that. Moving on to RQ30, honorable mention here is the Porsche 911 GT2 RS. It is my favorite GT2 by far, although the RQ29 GT2 I do love. I just love GT2s, man. I know the GT3s are, you know, more comfortable and they're the more popular version, but the GT2 is just that much more hardcore that I love it for it, you know. Another honorable mention is the Ford GT. I have the 2005 version, but I would love the 2017 Ford GT in my garage one day. But my favorite RQ30 car in the game goes to the Porsche 918 Spider. I don't know what to say. I'm a huge fan of Porsche, and this whole list was literally just American and German cars. Now thinking about it, with like a small dash of Italian and No, there's like one Italian car and like three Japanese cars. But yeah, the Porsche 918 Spider, man, I'm still surprised I still have this in my garage, honestly. Um, it was such a hard fight to get it, and I'm just so proud. Every day I look at my 918, I'm just like, I got you. And I got you through just hard work. Like, it wasn't a late join, I wasn't lucky with brackets, nothing like that. This was just pure grit, and I got it. So yeah, with that said, that's the RQ alphabet. So I hope you guys enjoyed this new series, and if you want to see more of it, let me know down in the comments below, and I'll definitely bring it back. Anyway, hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Blossom out.